Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here in this session. My name is Lord Remorin, a senior threat researcher working for forward-looking threat research team within Trend Micro. I'm glad for this opportunity to share with you the results we found on our research. So this session is about the smart factory research we did and how we created a fake factory to attract cyber criminals and to study how the attacks are happening on the industrial sector. So back in 2017, before we were about to start this research, there were reports that show cyber criminals are targeting factories, and in one of the headlines shows that hackers are targeting auto industries. So some reports also show that there has been a halt in production after being hit by a ransomware. So another report which really caught our attention is this. It says that factories in North Carolina are being threatened to shut down from a recent cyber attack. So what happens here is that cyber criminals get control on North Carolina's transmission plant network and threatens to lock up the production line until a ransom is paid. So this report raises several questions to us, like did they really get full control of the facility? How did the attacker get control of the facility? And how knowledgeable are these attackers with regards to ICS sector? So these are just some of the questions we wanted to get answered going forward with our research. With that, it led us on proposing this research project, which is a smart factory honeypot. So the video playing right now shows the HMI or human machine interface that we built, which is one of the machine connected on our honeypot network. So the main concept of our honeypot needs to be a high interaction honeypot, meaning what we would want is that we will use devices that are used on a real factory instead of simulating such devices. So the reason behind it is that we wanted to determine what will actually happen if we were compromised. So another thing we wanted to implement is to simulate a real ICS environment from the network layout to the ladder logic of the PLCs. And speaking of PLCs or programmable logic controllers, these are the common devices found on every production line that controls the flow of process. So we already had multiple different brands of PLCs from our previous research project and thought to just reuse them and on this current project. So from left we have the Siemens S7 1200, in the middle Omron CP1L, and last is the Allen Bradley Micrologics 1100. So the final network layout that we ended up was using this setup. There are a couple different parts in this setup, and I will go over the details on the critical parts on the next few slides. So this setup went through many iterations, but what we were attempting to look like is a small startup factory. What we thought next was, well, we can now program the PLCs. So, but then we were stuck since we do not know what is the actual process on a factory that we wanted to mimic. So instead of programming the PLCs, we designed an HMI first. We wanted to look like that we were a prototyping company doing plastics injection molding process. So each process shown is tied to a PLC. We could have programmed the whole process on a single PLC, but we wanted to achieve here is a variety of different PLC brands in case an attacker knows more on one brand to the others. So to go over the process of this production line, from the top, we have the plastics product in a tank that goes into a heater on the left side, going to the plastics injector, and then to a conveyor belt. At the end of the conveyor belt, there is an optical scanner that tells if the product is good or bad, and then a robotics arm that palletizes the products. So we learn that we have to do this first since we do not have the actual devices that the PLCs control, like for example, a conveyor belt's motor or a heater. And since we don't have the actual motor or equipment to be controlled, we also need to fake the feedback value of a sensor to the PLC logic to make it more realistic. So this is the ladder logic we created for one of the process in the production. It shows that once the conveyor motor is turned on, the RPM value increases over time. Um, we wanted to make this as realistic as possible. That if an attacker went too far on checking the logs, for example, we do not want them to see just a constant value or just a random value. So, and to make it more realistic, we added a fluctuating value, just like a noise on a graph, that will mimic real operation of a motor. So this way, when the attacker checks on our logs, it doesn't look like that we just fake the data. And to compute for the random value, we used a popular pseudo-random generator equation. So this equation, we translated it to ladder logic. And depending on the brand of the PLC, a modular function can be used. In some brands, we had to create our own logic that will compute for the modulo of two numbers. And after we made the HMI screen and the logic, and we mapped out so that the HMI and the PLCs are now communicating, we now have a working HMI of a factory that looks like deployed from a production line. So in this video, just like the video from the previous one, you will see that the different processes involved on a production line. So each process can be turned on or off. And we can also initiate a factory shutdown, just like in a normal production line. So for the HMI screen, there is a palletizer involved in one of the process. So we decided to add Robotics virtual machine on our Honeypot. We thought that this will add more authenticity on our Honeypot, and to add more machines on the network. So even though that we do not have the actual robotics arm that we are using, so we also decided that we would allow remote access initially on this workstation. So keep in mind that the incidents or attacks that I will be discussing later starts from this machine, which we exposed to the internet. So for an attacker to get access to the PLCs, they will need to pivot through the robotics machine, going to the HMI or engineering workstation, and then to the PLCs. While we only saw one basic attempt to pivot, it was not to gain access to the control systems, but someone who came in and exfiltrated a bunch of data and then deleted the files from our file server. I will discuss more about it later in the incident section. We also wanted to pose as a company that was accidentally exposed via misconfiguration of our network. We do not want to expose everything to the internet, and we specifically chose PLC ports and two VNC ports. At the early point of this research, we exposed RDP open, but there has been too many scanning of that port that attacks were getting disconnected. So we decided to just use VNC. So this is the port forwarding configuration we created to expose services on the internet. Port 44818 is the Allen Bradley Micrologics PLC. 9600 is the for Omron CP1L. 102 is for Siemens S7 1200, and the VNC services 5900 and 5901. And to give more realism to the company that we're faking, we wanted our company to have an online presence as well. So what we did, just like any other business, is that we built a web page for our startup company. You will notice that there are two addresses at the bottom of this image, so which indicates the physical offices we use. The true addresses are real, and they are actually business incubators. And this is the image of the building from the outside at the Tennessee address. So we chose this location as our production office since one of the member of this research live close by to this address. And during the time that we're doing research, we look around the building and saw that there were multiple startup companies that were running during that time. So for an attacker to visit this location, and um, it would be not hard to believe that our actual production office is in this location. And aside from the physical address, we also routed subdomains, which are very common for a company. And again, if an attacker is trying to profile us, they will see multiple subdomains that we use. Um, we have the main website, which is themetech.co. We added two other subdomains that we have control of, factory.metech.co, which lead to access of the factory network, and vpn.metech.co, which is another IP we have access to. What's important here is that we name one of the subdomains as factory so that anyone trying to reverse DNS search or IP, they will see it as a factory.metech.co. So, and for a company to be running, there must be employees behind it. We created the faces of our company from a website called thispersondoesnotexist.com. So the website uses AI to generate fake faces of a person. So the persons you are seeing right now are all generated fake faces. So it took some time to find a perfect face for the company because there are times that the website is returning a distorted face. So we have to make sure everything is perfect and nothing is suspicious. We also added profile for each persona so that it would look legitimate. Another thing that we added is a phone number that we can be contacted to. So we added a VoIP service to receive and make calls. And for the duration of our research, we didn't get any calls related to attacks, but only a couple of calls from persons we knew. Since we wanted them to profile us and check if we can be easily found. And once everything was laid out, we added network taps for us to monitor all the network events on our honeypot. So in total, we used 4 network taps to monitor all the important machines on our honeypot. This way, we can identify when an intrusion occurred and what other things they have done in the network. So from the network taps we set up, we took the network captures and loaded to Moloch. So Moloch is just an open source tool we used so we can easily check the network traffic if anything is suspicious. This way we can easily monitor network events on our honeypot. From all the setup and configuration we did, we can now monitor events in our honeypot. So the question now is, what incident took place on our honeypot? This is the complete timeline of incidents we got from May to December of last year on our honeypot. I would like to emphasize that not all these events are of cyber attack in nature. Some of the incidents were triggered by us, whether to fix or revert from an attack that we just encountered. So if you will notice, there is a big gap between September and October. This is a phase that we had to rebuild the virtual machines from a recent ransomware attack. So I will go over some of the interesting incidents highlighted. And for those who are interested in the full details of the incidents, you can read the full report on our research publication. So to start with the incidents is the very first malware installed after we went online. So on May 6th, 2019, we went online with the honeypot and we exposed ports to the internet. At first, we exposed our honeypot to the internet with no interaction to the VNC service of robotic and HMI machines. But after a few weeks of making sure our systems was stable, we opened up the robotics machine for remote control. It took a while for people to really take interest on our system. And finally, on July 24th, about 2 months after, um, we had an attacker come in and install a malware. So we identified that the malware installed was a backdoor called Ares, and the source code of this backdoor can be found on GitHub. So we were all excited about this, and we let this threat actor run their malware on our honeypot for days. We were hoping they would do something different, but to our disappointment, what they did was install a Monero miner on the Robotics workstation, and from the network traffic, we confirmed the crypto mining activity. So this crypto miner also lead our PC to quickly heat up and bring crashes to our honeypot. So because of the crypto miner, we had overheating issues on our host machine. And in the end, we thought that we just need to move on and block this threat actor on our network. So, but we wanted to make sure if the threat actor was not involved in any other cybercrime activities. So we profiled the attacker from the email address we got, which was embedded in the Monero miner. And to confirm our assumption, he was just a script kiddie based from his post on forums. And fast forwarding to another incident after the first attack, we received several more incidents like phone fraud, enabling of RTP service. Other people just wants to annoy us. They will come into our network, and all they did was log off once connected. So, but what we really wanted to focus, and as we previously mentioned, we heard a lot of news about factories that were being held ransom. So, when we finally got a ransomware in late September 2019, we were again get excited. The question now running through our minds were, did the attackers know what they had compromised? Um, did they know that it is a factory? And would they know what files they encrypted? So the video playing right now is the actual attack done on the robotics workstation. Um, we just fast forwarded the video here. But the attack took almost 20 minutes before they left. So the attack started with a access via VNC, and then they downloaded TeamViewer, which they used to download the ransomware and other components of their attack. Um, they made sure that the files on the robotics workstation were encrypted by ransomware by checking if the file names were renamed. And once everything was installed, we knew we had ransomware. And it is a variant of Crisis ransomware. From the ransom note, there is an email address which we contacted. So that way we would understand, we could understand more on these attackers. So the email conversation with the attackers goes like this. When we contacted them first, they said that they will reply from a new email address. So this could be a way for them to continue the conversation with their victims in case the first email address gets blocked or reported. And then they initially asked us for 10,000 US dollars to decrypt the files. And they're willing to decrypt a file for us to show that they can really decrypt the files. So from a follow-up email, they specifically said on their email that the files we should upload for testing should not be important. So we thought we need to test them if they know what file is important and which ones are not. So we gave them the logic file of Omron PLC. Funny thing is that they came back to us, they decrypted the file without hesitation. And for us, this only means one thing. The attacker in this case did not know that the file we gave was important and related to ICS. They continued to contact us and offer to lower the ransom from 10,000 to 8,000 and finally 6,000 US dollars. Eventually, we decided to stop communicating to the ransomware actors and just restore our honeypot. So it took us a couple of days to make sure everything is restored, just like when a real company is hit by ransomware. So Curious enough, we check how much the attacker already earned since last year. And if you can see the balance here, they already had 62 bitcoins received, which is almost 800,000 US dollars as of now. And after restoring from the first ransomware attack, we had we got another attack. We called it not so advanced. This incident is also where Mike, which is one of our employee in our fake company, he was virtually insulted. So in our incidents tracker, we named this not so advanced at first because they were struggling to download and execute their malware on our system. So this is the error message they're getting when downloading the malware, and they're struggling to find how to disable the security application. So eventually, they found how to disable it, and they successfully ran their malware. Um, when we started our investigation, we noticed that the malware is a Meterpreter reverse shell. And for those who are unfamiliar of Meterpreter, it is a popular backdoor payload used on pen testing framework. So we let the malware execute for a couple of days while we were monitoring the network activity. And from Moloch, we noticed that there is a high number of network traffic going outside of our Honeypot network. So we knew that they are exfiltrating data from our network. And checking on the file server, we noticed that they have deleted everything. So we waited for a couple of days and we received this sticky note on the robotics machine. They said that Mike is an idiot and he shouldn't be an admin. So it was poor for Mike being insulted like this. We tried to contact the email address, but we didn't get any response. So the reason we thought could be is that they realized that the 13 gigabyte files that they exfiltrated from us are all corrupted. Maybe they thought that there is no point on negotiating with us to restore those files. And moving on to another incident, we noticed that not all incidents we had have malicious intent. So others just want to notify us that we should pay more attention on security. So just like this incident, we called him Good Guy Hacker. Um, on November 1st, a hacker named Metra came into our honeypot. Instead of deploying a malware or doing something destructive on our system, what he did is he left a note for us saying that our machine is exposed and that anyone can access it. Of course, we purposely made it that way so we will get attacked. We really appreciate what our good guy hacker did here, showing that there is still good out there, even though there's just too many cyber criminals who wanted to profit. Um, and for the last incident, I wanted to discuss this event which happened from August 2019. So this incident involves Dan Tentler or Vis. So we call him Vis because of his Twitter handler at Vis. So to give a background on this incident, Vis is also a security researcher in ICS Security. So the story goes like this. Mike Tucker, who is also a security researcher, reached out to Stephen Hilt, who is a member of this research. So he was asked because he lived in Tennessee area and may have some information about a factory that is exposed online. So sounds familiar. We gave our IP and asked if they can verify that it was the IP. So Mike gave our IP to Vis, who is already looking on our honeypot, and confirmed it was in fact the IP he was investigating. So, and during the conversation, we learned that this incident was already forwarded to ICS CERT. So this actually did what is right here, which is to report immediately to ICS CERT because a factory is exposed. So we knew we had to stop this and quickly reach out to Vis so that this won't escalate further. At first, he is not believing that the factory he saw online was a honeypot. So we left him a message from the Honeypot, and this is the message we left for Vis, showing him that we control the machine. He didn't believe immediately, and it took a couple more hours of discussion before finally we convinced him that everything he saw was fake. And after everything was sorted out, we got an email from him. So the subject of the email was the most elaborate honeypot. So with this email, we took this as validation that a security researcher that does a lot of talks about things exposed online had no idea that what he found was in fact is just a honeypot. And after sending that email, he also posted a tweet saying that he needed some ROM like now. Again, this is some more validation to us that what we did good on what we wanted to achieve, and which is creating a realistic honeypot with a solid background story. And going back to all the incidents we had, the question now is where did all the network connections came from? So this shows how frequent we receive a connection categorized by a country of origin. So the first image shows the network connection connecting to robotics and HMI machine. So keep in mind that not all network traffics here are malicious, and we notice a lot of volume of these network connections are from scanners. So this second image is connections to Siemens S7. This third one from Micrologics, and finally connections to Omron PLC. So from these images, we can say that a country of origin of a PLC plays a big part too. For example, this is for the Omron PLC, which is a Japanese brand of PLC. Reason for high volume of network traffic coming from Japan could have been the updates and pinging back to servers located in Japan. But that is also a good mask when an attacker tries to hide their network traffic. So, in conclusion, never ever expose a control system on the internet. If ever there is a need to access service or a PLC, it would be best practice to set up a VPN network to connect to before anyone can access the production network. We also noticed that some attackers are more interested in just using a clean IP. So, with clean IP address, a cybercriminal can do their fraudulent activities or even use that IP to send out spam emails. Another thing we noticed is that we really didn't get any ICS related attacks. So, one reason for this is that our fake company might be too small to attract attackers, especially those doing highly sophisticated attacks, or to simply say your state sponsored attacks. Another key point to remember when running a high interaction honeypot, it also requires daily interaction. For us, we started the factory Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. just to mimic working hours of a real factory. And while running the factory on a regular work hour basis, we also need to deal with incidents as they come. So, meaning, even during weekends, we still need to review the incidents and not to wait for multiple infections before investigation starts. So, this way we can isolate what happened on our honeypot and identify the intent of the attacker. Finally, attackers will be mean to our network administrators, and they will take advantage of any flaws on the network. So, with that, thank you again for joining. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out by email or through chat. Thank you.